Across America's wide-open fields, old Ford F-Series trucks are still working hard every single day. No turbochargers, no 10-speed transmissions, no complicated electronics, just the steady, low-pitched rumble of an engine you can count on. That sound comes from the Ford 300 Inline-6, a machine that never sought the spotlight but never gave up either. In Ford's long history, names like the Flathead V8, Windsor and Coyote are often hailed as icons. But if you ask mechanics, truckers or farmers who've relied on their vehicles for generations, the name they remember most is the 300i6, not because it was fast, but because it simply refused to die. So what allowed this engine to survive 3 decades of technological change, fuel crises, emissions regulations, and even being forgotten by the mainstream? In this video, we'll uncover why the Ford 300 Inline-6 is more than just an engine. It's a symbol of America's hard-working, rugged, and relentlessly durable spirit. The 1960s were a time of dramatic shifts in the American auto industry. Manufacturers competed to release ever more powerful V8s, and the market was saturated with ads touting horsepower and speed. But amid that frenzy, Ford took a quieter path, one focused on serving the practical needs of hard-working Americans. In 1965, Ford introduced the 240 and 300 cubic-inch inline-6 engines to replace older i6s like the 223. The goal wasn't racing, it was to build a power plant strong enough for hauling, towing, and daily work, all while keeping maintenance costs low and reliability high. Ford understood that not everyone needed a Mustang. Many customers, farmers, small business owners, service workers just wanted a truck that started every morning, worked all day, and did it again tomorrow. That called for an engine designed with durability, not glamour, in mind. Choosing the inline-6 layout wasn't about innovation. It was about trusting a proven formula that had served trucks well for generations. While V8s were built to sell through emotion, this i6 was built to serve quietly, reliably, and without fuss. Rugged design, practical engineering, and durability above all else. First, it had an extra thick cast-iron block, thicker than most engines of its era. That gave it excellent resistance to wear, heat, and pressure over hundreds of thousands of miles. Some engines ran over 250,000 miles without ever being opened. Second, Ford gave it a massive crankshaft supported by 7 main bearings, an impressive number for a straight 6. Many common V8s only had 5. That meant the 300i6 had high structural rigidity, smooth operation, and almost zero chance of cracking. Next came its traditional overhead valve train, with an in-block camshaft and push rods. Fewer moving parts meant fewer things to break. And if something did go wrong, it could be fixed with basic tools in a backyard garage. Lastly, the cooling system, pistons, and cylinder head were all built for strength, not speed. And it wasn't just durable, the Ford 300 i6 was strong where it mattered. Not at high RPMs, but in low-end torque, where real work begins. If you've ever driven an old F-150 loaded down, climbing a hill in the cold, and the engine just growled its way upward like it was nothing, you've probably experienced the power of the Ford 300. What made it famous wasn't horsepower, it was torque delivered way down low. While many V8s peaked around 3,000 to 4,000 RPM, the 300i6 made peak torque between 1,600 and 2,000 RPM, delivering 240 to 265 pound-feet depending on the year. In simple terms, you didn't have to mash the gas to haul, tow, or climb. It was built to do hard work every single day without making a scene. That's why it ended up in everything: F-Series pickups, E-Series vans, U-Haul trucks, generators, industrial compressors. To power such a wide range of applications, the Ford 300 B6 saw several upgrades, though its core design remained nearly unchanged throughout its 31-year run. From 1965 to 1979, the engine featured a single-barrel carburetor, breaker point ignition, and a simple fuel system. Output ranged from 101 to 120 horsepower, with 223 to 260 pound-feet of torque, depending on the year and use. Between 1980 and 1986, Ford introduced DuraSpark electronic ignition, improving cold starts and reducing emissions. Some heavy-duty versions even used two-barrel carburetors for better torque under load. In 1987, the biggest change came. Ford replaced the carburetor with multi-port electronic fuel injection. This modernized the engine to meet stricter emissions regulations while preserving its durability and simplicity. Throughout its lifespan, the 306 never made more than 150 horsepower because it didn't need to. The core mission stayed the same: solid torque, easy maintenance, and long-term reliability. And that very philosophy made the Ford 306 the ideal choice for countless real-world applications, from farms and factories to highways and beyond. In the fields, it powered irrigation pumps, generators, and homemade machines. On construction sites, it worked in dump trucks, utility cranes, and hydraulic lifts. In garages, it was the reliable friend, easy to fix, with parts everywhere, and almost never broke down. People often say, "I drove my F-150 with a 300 i6 for 20 years. Over 300,000 miles, never opened the engine. Just oil, plugs, and air filters." Stories like that were common, and they built fierce loyalty to this engine. Beyond trucks and vans, the 300 i6 served in school buses, county police cars, RVs, small tow trucks, and even industrial barges. It delivered low-end torque, was easy to maintain, and didn't mind rough fuel-critical traits for real-world work. But the Ford 300 wasn't the only engine in the game. Its two biggest competitors, Chevy 292 and AMC 258, were also highly respected. Chevrolet's 292, introduced in the early 1960s, featured a long-stroke design and was known for strong pulling power. Some versions made up to 275 pound-feet of torque, even higher than the 300 E6. But it hit its peak torque at higher RPMs, making it less flexible for heavy work. It also had a more complex cylinder head and less consistent durability under harsh conditions. AMC's 258, widely used in Jeep CJs, was praised for being lightweight, efficient, and offering respectable torque. But the 258 leaned more toward recreational off-roading and light-duty use. Under constant heavy loads, it didn't last as long as the Ford 300. The biggest difference? The Ford 300 was built to work. No frills, no complications, just a machine that could keep running for hundreds of thousands of miles through winter and summer, day after day, year after year. All three engines have loyal fan bases, but if you had to pick one engine to power your whole fleet, most Americans would still say Ford 300 Inline 6. After more than 3 decades of serving hard-working Americans, Ford officially discontinued the 306 in 1996. Not because it failed, but because the world had changed. By the early 1990s, the auto industry had entered a new era where fuel efficiency, Emission standards and electronic integration were top priorities. With its heavy cast iron block, old-school OHV setup, and purely mechanical design, the 300i6 could no longer keep up with modern regulations. Meanwhile, new engines like the Ford 4.2-liter SX56 were introduced with clear goals: lighter weight, fewer parts, and easier compliance with CAFE and EPA rules. They weren't as durable as the 300, but they were easier to modernize. In truth, many longtime owners were skeptical. They believed the new engines might be smarter, but they didn't endure the way the old ones did. Still, Ford had no choice. Market demands and legal pressures forced the move. And frankly, the 300i6 had already lasted far longer than most engines ever do, dating back to 1965. Even though it ended production in 1996, the Ford 300i6 never truly disappeared. On forums, in backyard garages, and at classic truck meets, its name still earns special respect. Plenty of people still use it daily or restore old trucks just because they came with a 300e6. Some even swap it into Jeeps, tractors, or fishing boats because they trust it completely. In the aftermarket world, many companies still make performance parts for the 300, upgraded cams, modern EFI kits, even turbo setups built just for Ford's inline six. So while it may have retired from the assembly line, the 300i6 is still alive and running strong. If the Ford 300i6 was so durable, why not bring it back? The answer lies in the very thing that once made it great: mechanical simplicity. Today's engines must meet strict emissions, fuel economy, and electronic integration standards. A machine like the 300i6 simply has no place in the modern commercial market. Its heavy cast iron block, old-school OHV design, and lack of electronics make it nearly impossible to pass EPA or CAFE regulations. Even in the enthusiast world, fans can restore or upgrade it, but mass production isn't realistic anymore. Still, in the custom car scene and small industry circles, the 300i6 remains a hidden gem. Many builds still start with this engine because of its strong torque, easy-to-find parts, and work-friendly design. The Ford 300 wasn't the fastest or the most high-tech engine, but for over 30 years it proved one thing: simplicity, durability, and loyalty still matter in the world of machines. It didn't need a turbo, it didn't need sensors. All it needed was to start, to work, and to keep turning day after day. If you've ever owned a vehicle with a Ford 300i6, worked on one, modified it, or just loved the sound of its steady idle, share your story in the comments. These memories deserve to be remembered. Don't forget to hit like if you found this video valuable, and subscribe to the channel to join us in exploring more legendary machines, the steel and grease icons that helped build America.